folks, Zootopia Better Together premiered 2 weeks ago, and yet it's already broken. What is going on? Just like, actually, my microphone earlier. Very interesting. Clawhauser Animatronic already down at Zootopia Better Together in Walt Disney World. This by Lauren Strackner over there, November 23rd, 2025, a little over 2 weeks after officially opening Zootopia Better Together. Its main animatronic, Clawhauser, is down. The Disney Animal Kingdom attraction opened November 7th, and on November 23rd, our reporter let us know that the Officer Clawhauser animatronic, who plays a major role in the attraction, was not functioning, and that character was in B mode. Instead of the animatronic character appearing inside the theater with guests, Clawhauser is on screen via a satellite drone. He is wearing the same gazelle outfit as his animatronic, and in which he appears in Zootopia 2, and also appears in a production booth setting so he can wreak havoc by triggering in-theater effects. The space where the animatronic appears completely shadowed, although we could make out the items on the desk. When the show transitions into the different segments, Clawhauser similarly flies onto the screen to engage with Nick and Judy as they conduct their investigation. You can watch our video to see how that actually plays out. I'm gonna go ahead and play that video because it's basically, I mean, you know, it's Clawhauser on screen during that presentation, and he's put in there in such a way that you know, you could definitely tell that it was an afterthought for the Imagineers, which is very, very unfortunate. At least there's a B mode to be had. Otherwise, you don't get a show, I guess. But Clawhauser is extremely important to this production. He is the only audio animatronic on offer here for this show, and yet when he doesn't work, well, now you're void of both audio animatronics and some screen real estate for the main screen. Great, fantastic, Disney, great job, awesome stuff. I can't believe you can't get this right. I don't remember Hopper being down at all. Ron, am I wrong about that? Was Hopper ever down on any of your viewings of It's Thought to Be a Bug, the predecessor attraction to this?
I mean, not any of the time that I went. That doesn't mean Hopper was never down. In all of those years, there's a chance that Hopper would die. I never saw, but Hopper's huge. Hopper was such a big animatronic and such an important part of the show, vital really to the story. And let me think, the spiders always worked. They always came from the ceiling. It was yeah, I don't remember Hopper ever being down. I'm trying to think of the numbers of times that I saw the show over the years. It wasn't a huge amount because it wasn't one of my favorite attractions, but I've probably seen it more than 10 times. And this one, it would be very hard for me to report on because I have no desire to go back and see this thing again.
This is very embarrassing culture. I mean, why can't modern Imagineering get these audio animatronics to work for an extended period amount of time before going down almost immediately with all of their productions? And this is made worse by the fact that instead of many maybe simplistic figures with simple animations, you now are relying on only one or two kind of key figures in order to make your productions work. And now they're going down very quickly after opening these brand new attractions. Culture, what's going on?
The obvious statement here for me is that the engineering behind these particular figurines is not sound. They are trying to rely on a solid base that they can point to as like everything is going to originate from here. Everything is supported by it. Everything can be powered from this position, and all of that type of tech. Instead of like, how is this best going to operate going forward? And and how can we have it all work together so that it has the least amount of downtime possible? So when you see these piezoelectric animatronics versus the more hydraulically driven ones from the past and the different control systems involved with it, it was far more simplistic to get the activities and actions out of the old animatronics than it is out of the new ones. It comes down to just an over complexity that doesn't need to exist in a lot of these. I mean, when you have control boards, just for the face that, it's 24 different, motor controls, that's an entirely, different conversation than, the very simple lip wires and eye controls that went with a lot of the original animatronics. So again, the more sophisticated they get, the more likely they are to break down. The more simplistic you have as a base or anything else, the less that you require the engineering to do a lot of heavy lifting, the better off the animatronics end up being. And look, that's been the same since back in Walt's day. You have to remember that, Abe Lincoln ran forever on very, very, bent scrap metal and some in-house crafted parts down in the basement shop, they just don't have any of that at Disney anymore. They don't build the stuff in-house as they should. They don't. There's a really different mindset that we're happy to outsource these things so we don't have to worry about it and they'll just work, except that they don't. And then when they do break, who knows how to fix it? Who knows? None of these people are that they've hired now at the Disney company are capable of fixing it on the fly, or improving to make adjustments to this will get another 1,000 performances out of this fix if I just loop this this piece of candle wire around this particular
MacGyver again.
And honestly, that's how some of that happened. I mean, you talk to some of the old Imagineers and the maintenance folks, they'll tell you how things ran. They'll tell you, how they knew about when they were going to have to replace wheels over on Matterhorn, or when they knew that the poly finish on the wheel was not working. Over on Peter Pan or whatever it was. I mean, they would talk about, and again, this comes with institutional knowledge and a lifetime of working on these attractions, and they just don't have that anymore. They do not have a generational understanding of what it takes to make these things operate, and especially with the things they don't build anymore.
Yep. It wasn't that long ago, by the way, that they had this knowledge of how to actually, provide for some of these things. I remember talking to an ex-Imagineer, now unfortunately moved on to aeronautical engineering for NASA, I think. Yeah. Very interesting. But he was talking about the functions they were able to get out of audio-animatronic figures. Some of them very simplistic solutions, but they were able to get a lot of motion from them. For example, I think the giraffe featured in the Hot Pursuit attraction actually featured many functions that they were able to kind of string together, literally, and perform. Again, that's no longer the case now, as Culture beautifully points out. And before you continue, Culture, because I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to you, because I know you have a lot to say about on this topic. You mentioned Lincoln, and Lincoln actually made his debut back at the Opera House Theater to play alongside Walt, because Walt unfortunately was down, so we had to bring out Lincoln as the B mode. Great, but when that attraction actually started, for 8 minutes, mind you, the video presentation that plays before Lincoln to set him up, well, the projector actually didn't work the entire time. This is the same show, by the way, that took place in the Lincoln Theater before this turntable was added, and Walt Disney was added to the selection, or the rotation, I should say.
And again, the turntable shouldn't have anything to do with the performance of the AA. The figure's performance doesn't rely on that at all. But Disney's been using turntables for decades. I mean, America Sings / Carousel of Progress / a bunch of other things. You've utilized a rotating base to present different scenes with different characters. And again, a lot of people try to assign overcomplication to these elements, and they're just not. Eye movements are more simple than you believe. Raising a giraffe's neck is more simple than you think. It's really just it's a screw ram that actually will drive a series of interlinked cams that just elevate the neck upwards in a very natural progression and movement. It's something that, I could sit down at Fusion 360 or something, and over the course of just a few hours draw out a very natural, simplified, singularly driven by one motor, and not a very powerful one. It doesn't have to be, Herculean. Which is usually the failure point. And the reason I say it that way is because Bob Gurr thought up a fix for B-mode Yeti a decade and a half ago. And basically said, you don't need all of this power. Because remember, it's the thrust of how many 747 bologna sausage jets or whatnot.
It's a lot. Yeah, I think it's just one, but it's a lot of thrust, right? You have a lot of power and actuation. It's absolutely stupid, and it was because of how they chose to build it. This giant steel structure and everything else, and its span and all of that. And Bob Gurr's like, why not make it a marionette? Right. Well, it's way less weight, much more simple. And you still get all the actions, and that's the difference between an Imagineer and how they think about what performance they need to get, versus how difficult is it going to be to get that performance. And it comes down to, you need to simplify and reduce. That is nowhere in modern Imagineering's thought process these days. Even our friend who built Animal Kingdom, even Joe was guilty of overcomplicating things. Especially when it came to the Pandora's box effect that he utilized for the Flight of Passage attraction. Right. And then they overbuilt the animatronic, the shaman animatronic, in a way that basically created one opportunity for people to see it, and that has 0 B mode. That's just a screen.
Well, it goes to a screen, which is exactly what I saw last time I wrote it. Which was like a month ago.
So it's like, why is this? And it's very simple. I mean, if I were hired by the company, I would be about, okay, this is too complicated. You're doing this. This is too much. If you guys want to reduce costs, stop overcomplicating all these things, and make them easier to fix. And, and then teach people how to, improvise on how to keep these things up and running for your guests. It's not difficult. And linkage is, if you have to rebuild a linkage in a shop, there used to be, I don't think there are anymore, but there used to be places in the utilidors where you could rebuild a linkage if you had to. There used to be spots that you could actually pour a new manhole cover if you had to. These are some of the elements a lot of people don't understand about what Disney used to be able to do, because they were invested in the film making art, the art of making entertainment, that they would craft set pieces in the park, because that's how they looked at all of these elements. The Carousel of Progress, that's a show. It's a bunch of sets. They look at it that way. This is a show. This is a show. So how do we make the show better? Well, we replace this broken piece on the set. We replace these other things. They don't do that anymore. So it really does come down to the poor leadership that we've been subjected to for the better part of 2.5 decades.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
enough of that.
really, really unfortunate. It's super sad. I hope that Imagineering kind of gets their act together when it comes to these audio animatronics. Look, if your designs are so complex and you rely on a singular figure in order to sell your show, like not to like in the case of the aforementioned shaman, for example, you're doing something wrong there because the animatronic is bound to break down. And what happens when that happens? You could have a B mode, yes, but is that really what you want for your guest when that specific audio animatronic goes down? It's interesting because I look at like Splash Mountain, for example, and there were over 100 figures for that attraction, at least as it existed in Disneyland, much of those being reused from America Sings. And I look at that ingenuity, I marvel at it because you would just never catch Disney doing something like that today. In fact, that's not what they did with the replacement attraction, that being Tales of Mighty Adventure. By the way, Bob Gurr, one of his last projects ever for WDI, was the moving steamboat effect at the end there, the finale that we all loved. Oh, all of that is gone. It's terrible, but
well, I mean, you had a lot of built-in natural advantages to the way that steamboat was built. You have elements that were, one of the realizations that animators had when they were building the animatronics for their performances, such as things like compliance, which is the natural shake, because your body doesn't stop immediately in a fixed position. It continues on and it settles into a natural resting position. It's why when you're riding on spaceship Earth and you get around near the Phoenicians and you see ancient Greece and they're talking about math and the mathematicians holding out a gyroscope, right? And they're talking around that. That's why when it stops, it doesn't stop on a dime. It's why there's a little bit of compliance in its actions where it just kind of naturally settles into a natural position. And those types of things Disney kind of happened upon and then built into the animatronics that they had going forward. Now, and again, I'm talking about very simple figures that give a very natural performance that they do in and out every single day and they don't break down. They've now done it in a way that just overbuilds every single one of these animatronics. It's like they saw Friday Night at Freddy's and decided we want to build animatronics like that. But the problem with doing that and not, again, building them in a way that gives a natural style of performance and gives that herky-jerky kind of effect, you're going to have more problems and more breakdowns because you're asking this thing to do a performance multiple times, come to abrupt starts and stops, and do a bunch of other things that aren't natural, that work against the success of the appliance that you're building in the first place. So it is.
I think that there's a story element to it where they care less.
They don't care at all.
Because Clawhauser is not essential as an animatronic to the show. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I'm thinking of the last show where a very similar set of animatronics were extremely important to the show.
Hopper
elevated the show. Not just Hopper. I'm talking about the Muppets. Muppet Vision 3D. Statler and Waldorf sat on the side, did the same thing that had the same relative position Clawhauser has, worked every single time and added so much to that show, which was, by the way, a massively superior 3D show to this thing.
Well,
right.
And at the same time, they also weighed tons. Most people don't realize how much those individual performers weigh. It's a conversation that we don't have often enough. It's like these performers, these animatronics, they weigh tons, hundreds, thousands of pounds. It just depends on their size, and the engineering that goes into just mounting them there so that they don't move around. There's a lot going into that. Most people don't understand.
Correct. And it's remarkable the amount of compliance and also movement that they were able to get out of old animatronics, especially with much heavier parts. And now, unfortunately, Disney just can't seem to duplicate. Even though these designs are getting much more complex, they're also getting, I would think, much more maintenance heavy and much less reliable. Not good.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.